What's happening, guys? It's DK Priori and I finally have some Elden Ring content for you all to enjoy. I am currently level 46, just under 30 hours into the game, and as you can see from my map, I've explored a load of areas, but I haven't been into the first legacy dungeon yet, which is this area here, Stormvale Castle, although I did take out the Margit the Fellowman who guards the path to the castle. But like I said, as you can see, this game is vast. That's just the overworld. There's still regions that I haven't even explored yet, and there's these underground regions. Well, I've found this one. I don't know if there's map fragments for the underground regions. I kind of noped out of there because I was way under level for it, but I'm assuming there's more than one of these underground sort of subterranean citadels, if you will. So I'm really excited just to see what else this game has to offer. As it currently stands, this playthrough, my first playthrough, it's totally blind. I'm discovering stuff as I go along, and I haven't been recording a let's play of this playthrough purely because I wanted to experience it totally solo. That means no multiplayer, no summons, no invasions, just me immersed in the world, having a good time with it, and just unfolding everything this game has to offer without, recording episodes and having to do commentary and stuff. So I've just been sitting here solo on my own, getting balls deep into this game, and I've been having an absolute blast. I am playing it on PC, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give you some initial impressions of the game, especially the PC version. I'll start with the performance, I'll cover the gameplay and combat mechanics, I'll cover the world, and I'll cover all of the things that make the quality of this game just absolutely astounding. So sit back, relax, and for the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to tell you what I think of Elden Ring for my first 30 hours with the game. With that out of the way, I'm actually going to start with the one negative that has been a hot topic for PC players of Elden Ring really since launch, and that being the performance/optimization. What I will state for the record is that my experience with performance on PC, whilst it hasn't been without its flaws, has overall been fine. Full disclosure though, I'm running a 1080 Ti i7-7700K at 420GHz and 16GB of RAM. This stuff is 5-year-old hardware, and that means I can only play Elden Ring on high, and there's no possibility I'll be playing with HDR on or any ray tracing. The textures look really good, but they do pop in on occasion. The frame rate is overall a decent 60 FPS, but does drop to 30-ish for a split second. This is really apparent during mounted combat, I found. I noticed it most against the fight with the tree sentinel. I had a couple of crashes during the time I was exploring Fringe Folk Hero's grave too. However, I've been to some areas that appear to be pretty resource intensive and maintained a consistent frame rate throughout. I know some people are using words like terrible for the PC port. I mean, frankly, this has not been my experience at all. Yeah, PC optimization could do with some work, but on the whole, Elden Ring performs well for me. All the things I bumped into, the texture pops, the momentary frame drops, they're the kind of things I would expect from any game of the sheer scale that Elden Ring offers. That said, a lot of the people I'm seeing complain hard about the optimization are folk who have the very best, most up-to-date rigs. They're capturing footage in 4K and streaming, and they're playing the game on max setting, and perhaps the struggle is realer for them than it is for me, and if that's the case, FromSoft definitely have some work to do on optimization for those high-end rigs. I guess what I'm trying to get out of the way here is that Elden Ring, on PC does have its issues, but in my experience it is nowhere near as bad as to qualify being described as terrible. Honestly, that comes across to me as some clickbait shit. I'd reserve the term terrible for, say, Blighttown on the original PC port of Dark Souls, or better still, Cyberpunk 2077's launch, or Skyrim on the PS3. They were awful. Elden Ring, it just needs a little more tweaking. But that's enough about PC performance. Now I want to get into how fantastic this game is. What you have with Elden Ring is really an evolution of Dark Souls 3. If you've cracked that nut, the mechanics here will feel familiar. The speed of combat is very much the same as Dark Souls 3, and you don't have that hyper-speed dodging and super aggression of Bloodborne, and you also don't have the rhythmic swordplay of something like Sekiro. Yet, somehow it still feels fresh. Mounted combat certainly plays a part in that. Fighting something whilst on your horse provides a different kind of exhilaration than going toe to toe. For those of you that have played Dark Souls 3, imagine fighting Dark Eater Medea with a cleaned up, way less janky hitbox and the ability to weave back and forth around him on horseback and get in and attack. Suddenly the arena you're fighting in totally opens up. Honestly, mounted combat in Elden Ring, and being on a mount in general, feels really responsive and fluid. It's a great addition. However, deeper than that is the ability to use, albeit simple, stealth mechanics to get the upper hand when approaching a clustered group of enemies, finding a vantage point and assessing the threat before you charge in, using the elevation and vegetation of the open world to thin out enemy camps is a brilliant dimension that's been added. That's probably the biggest takeaway we have from Sekiro in Elden Ring. Weapon customization has been tweaked, and I have to say it seems so far to be a positive. Imagine weapon arts from Dark Souls 3 fused with the infusion aspects from the other games. That's basically what you have with Elden Ring in the form of the Ashes of War that they've added. Sure, you can still upgrade your weapons with specific upgrade maps, but being able to swap out the weapon art with one that also improves affinity is a really nice touch. And affinity here is the infusion aspect of Ashes of War. Specific affinities grant bonus scaling with specific stats. If you're going full Zug Zug Strength Boy, changing to an Ash of War with heavy affinity is the way to go. Keen is for edgy dex weapons, and so on and so forth. However, the affinity is not necessarily tied to a specific Ash of War, meaning that say you don't like the Stomp Sweep moveset, you can change it for Stomp Upward Cut, whilst also retaining that affinity with strength. Personally, I think this will be really interesting to see in PvP. Sure, the Meta Lords may decide on a particular katana for PvP viability, however, as an opponent, you can no longer look at that weapon and think, oh, that's going to be this moveset, because there's no longer an immediate way to predict which Ash of War the player has on their weapon until they use it. Also, the status effects are brutal. Bleed, Madness, Cold, they're all going to have great utility for those who like to play that way. Whilst I've already stated that I'm not doing multiplayer with this build, a further playthrough would have me thinking really seriously about PvP viability in a way that I haven't been bothered about whatsoever since Dark Souls 2. The world. My goodness, the world. It's pretty massive. I mean, not only do you have different regions of the overworld, all with their own distinct look and atmosphere, there are also pretty big underground areas that are sort of like Blackreach in Skyrim, although not as much of a pain in the dick to play in. The landscape and architecture has that distinctive beauty and attention to detail that Souls games generally have. Also, I have to say, the use of persistent music outside of boss battles really helps drive home the vibe of each region. One region in particular sounds as foreboding as it looks, and the music really tops this off. The main draw of the world though, for me at least, is how well it captures your desire to explore thoroughly. I haven't even been into Stormvale Castle yet, which is the first authentic Dark Souls style level of the game, which are called Legacy Dungeons in Elden Ring. Instead, I've just been riding around looking for points of interest and going there to see what rewards I can plunder from a dungeon, or what optional boss I can try my skill against. Unlike a lot of open world games, where the rewards are hardly worth the time you invest in going through the slog of a fetch quest or some generic fluff, Elden Ring seductively beckons you to just roam, and you'll nearly always find something that's worth it. Even if you're running a strength build, Going through that crystal dungeon and finding the sorcerer at the end after defeating the boss results in maybe I should go there on my second playthrough as a caster, or maybe I'll respec because that sorcery looks really cool. Speaking of bosses and enemies, this stuff is top notch. I mean, I have encountered a dungeon boss that was essentially a reskin of a previous dungeon boss, but the visuals, movesets and design offer an incredible amount of variety on the whole. This goes even with the basic enemies. Some of the stuff I've happened across has me thinking, who came up with this, while simultaneously running like crazy because that giant lobster is going to one-shot me. You see, when all is said and done, Elden Ring, no matter how big and replete with exploration it is a Souls title at heart. And with that comes the almost inevitable desire to return to the lands between multiple times, trying different builds and getting that overwhelming replayability out of it. To put this in perspective, Dark Souls 3 came out on my birthday in 2016. It's 2022 and I still play it. For me, personally, Elden Ring is going to be with me for a very long time. The proverbial gift that keeps on giving. There are a couple of quirks that Elden Ring inherits from the Souls games. The vagueness and obscurity of quests is a little more pronounced in Elden Ring, because the world is so vast and of course there's no quest markers or hand-holding. You simply emerge from a tutorial area and the map is yours to explore as you want. For some people, this will be as much of a frustration as the lack of a difficulty setting, but for me, and I suspect a great many of you guys, this is a real positive. It genuinely feels like my adventure. This is my journey and I'm doing it my way. Story progress isn't pushed in your face. I'm not exploring and looting because I'm thinking I want to make sure I can beat King Godric or whatever. I'm spending the time doing that stuff because I genuinely want to. The game world has completely pulled me in and I want to see all that it has to offer. As a player, you have the freedom to do that. As is tradition with Souls games, FromSoft are not in the business of patronising or condescending their player base with the go to this exact spot and do this thing, or you should play the game this exact way. You'll figure out your route, your own path and ultimately your own game. So, it goes without saying that I am absolutely enamoured with Elden Ring. This is, at least for myself, the absolute best Souls game FromSoft have developed. My love affair with these titles goes way back to OG Demon Souls on the PS3, and as much as I love everything they've put out, yeah, even you Dark Souls 2, Elden Ring feels like the culmination of all the things everyone rates about those previous titles, spread across a luscious open world with heaps of actually engaging content. I mean, apparently Dying Light 2 takes around 500 hours to complete to perfection, but when say 470 of those hours are a complete snooze fest, there's no real incentive to bother. There's certainly no incentive to do it all a second or third time. And I'm not just looking at Dying Light 2 there, that goes for similar open world games where the bulk of the content is just fluff. I'm only around 30 hours into Elden Ring, and I haven't truly scratched the surface of what this game offers. It gives you everything you need to succeed, and everything you could want to feel truly immersed in its world.